Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 3 of You're Wrong, a series between Have a Chat Productions and The Touchline. If you missed out on episode 2, it was all about WWE, so make sure you check it out on Have a Chat Productions YouTube channel. Link will be in the description down below. But today we're focusing on UFC. I've got Anthony on my right and Joseph on my left. Boys, how are you?
Yeah, good, and you?
Yeah, I'm good. Are you all right today? You ready to prove that he's wrong?
I hope so.
Yeah. How do you feel?
I'm ready to agree and disagree.
Okay, you ready? Okay, boys, so the topic today for episode 3 is who is the best Australian UFC fighter of all time. Anthony, I'll let you start first since it's our channel. So yeah, go ahead. Who's your best Australian UFC fighter?
The greatest Australian fighter of all time, I'm going to say Robert Whittaker. I think he's the best striker in the division with welterweight and middleweight division. He's got power, he's got skills on him, comes from a jiu-jitsu background, comes from a freestyle background as well with kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, boxing as well, and Nikito as well. It comes from one of the best gyms in Australia. It's called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And he's been dominating the welterweight division and plus now like the middleweight division as well.
Okay, thanks Bashar for your favourite Australian fighter. Now Joey, your turn. Who's your one?
I'm going to go with the other Aussie in the UFC, the other ex-champion, being Alexander Volkanovski. And the reason being is because he has fought everyone. He doesn't get submitted. He doesn't get tired. He has some insane escapes. His grappling is world-class. His striking is world-class. And he's kind of a nightmare to every opponent that he versus. And that really shows in his record. He's 26-4 with 13 by knockout and 3 by submission. And he's only lost 4 times, 2 recently. I think it's Alexander Volkanovski.
All right, now without further ado, let's get started. Round 1 is about each Australian UFC fighter's resume. Anthony, tell me why Robert Whittaker has one of the greatest resumes in UFC.
Look, honestly, because Robert Whittaker, man, he had a hard obstacle opponents. Like when he started, because he was unknown, no one didn't know who he was when he started in the Ultimate Fighter. So how can I say? He was versing like Luke Newman in the Ultimate Fighter. He had to verse Xavier Lucas, his Aussie teammate in the Ultimate Fighter as well. And then he had to verse, I don't know who the other fighter was in the finals. So he did defeat him. And then he had all the top 30 fighters like in the welterweight division. When you had like Renato Souza, you had Derek Brunson, you had Jared Cannonier, you had who was it? Yoel Romero twice. He had to verse Calvin Gastelum as well. That was meant to happen, but unfortunately it didn't happen.
So he versed some proper fighters.
Yeah, he had the hardest fighters in his division, but it wasn't easy for Robert Whittaker, but he got the job done and he had to execute. He had a lot of strikes and he had very powerful strikes in him to get the job done, and he had to stuck to the game plan because he always said to his coaches, and the coaches said to him, saying, when you go into the octagon, you have to stick to the game plan to become the best fighter that you can be, because he's actually like one of the best Aussie fighter of all time. I would say.
Well, you would say he is the best.
I think so. He is the best Aussie fighter right now because he's more dangerous. He's more powerful.
All right, that was well said, Anthony. Now, Joey, what is your resume about Alex Volkanovski?
Well, if I'm comparing it to Robert Whittaker, I want to say that when Robert Whittaker, his fights leading up to his title fight and then his title defense, they were great at the time, but if you look at them now, they're either not in the UFC or they're not fighting. Rather, if you look at Alexander Volkanovski's record, you look at the first 3 fights of his UFC, okay, there were no names. Then he got, I don't know if you guys will recognize the name, Chad Mendes.
Yeah, of course, Chad Mendes.
Yeah, fought for the title, was it 3 times? Beat him in great fashion. Chad Mendes actually took that loss so bad that he thought about retiring because he goes, I lost to a no-name. You didn't lose to a no-name. You lost to the great, Alexander. And then after that, he beat, I'm not sure if you guys know this, Aldo.
Jose Aldo, I watched that fight as well.
Who was the first featherweight champion of the UFC. Undeniably one of the greatest featherweights
of all time.
All champions in period. And then after that, he beat who for the title? He beat Max Holloway. And he didn't only beat him once, he beat him twice. can I keep going with this?
Yeah,
you
keep
guys
going,
see
yeah,
where I'm going
yeah.
at? So he beat Max Holloway twice, and then he beat Brian Ortega. I don't know if you guys remember that fight. He was actually caught in a very tight guillotine, and Brian Ortega is known for these. He's known once he has you, you're done. Not only did Volkanovski get out, he also won the fight. He beat him in great fashion, and then he beat Korean Zombie, who was also exceptional at the time. And that's without even mentioning the fact that he went up twice to lightweight to fight the current pound-for-pound champion. And even though he's lost to him twice, some debate that his first fight with him, he won. He dominated that fight like you wouldn't believe, but it just so happened he lost the decision, and then he lost the second fight via TKO. So, in my opinion, Volkanovski's had the much harder route and the much harder title defense.
All right, boys, great answers for round one. But round two, now we're moving on to achievements. I'm going to start with you, Joey, on this one. What achievements has Volkanovski have in his career to prove that he's the best Australian fighter?
Well, to start off with, he's technically a 6-time UFC featherweight champion. He had a 22-fight win streak at one point before he lost. He also fought up a weight class for not just just a bout, but he fought twice for the lightweight title against the current pound-for-pound. He's also after Robert Whittaker, so this will be a point for you, he's a second Australian UFC champion. He's also a former AFC featherweight champion. And prior to his UFC debut, Volkanovski was actually a professional boxer in 2015. So those are his achievements.
I never knew that he was a boxer.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he was very heavy. He was, as you guys would know, a front rower in rugby.
He played
And
rugby
then
league,
he did boxing a bit, and then moved into...
Okay, thanks, Joey, on that. Now we'll move on to Anthony Whittaker's. What has he achieved in the UFC to prove that he's the greatest?
So he's won the 2018 GQ Australia Sportsman of the Year award. So he's achieved that very well. He won the Ultimate Fighter in 2012. One time, he was the interim UFC welterweight champion. I think he was the first UFC welterweight champion. He was the first Australian to win the UFC championship and first New Zealand. So people don't know that. He's half Aussie, half Kiwi. So both nations. He's won the Ultimate Fighter Smashers welterweight tournament winner. So he was aligning with Calvin Gastelum. So I think it was like 2 years after when he won the Ultimate Fighter. He was the knockout of the season in the Ultimate Fighter Smashers. And he had fight of the night 5 times against Clint Hester, Yoel Romero, Calvin Gastelum, and Derek Brunson. And performance of the night 4 times. He versed Brad Tavares, Derek Brunson, Ronaldo Salza, and Ikram Alisgrov. That was the last previous fight at Abu Dhabi. And he had the second most post-fight bonuses UFC middleweight division history. Back-to-back, and he was tied with Yoel Romero and Dracus du Plessis. So he's got a big, massive achievement in his career, Rob Whittaker, so can't disappoint, honestly.
All right, that's a wrap-up for round 2. Now, boys, this is probably the nicest debate I've ever seen. We're heading on to round 3, which is impact, so I'm expecting it to be a bit more intense. Anthony, we'll start with you. What impact has Robert Whittaker had on the UFC, especially in Australia?
Look, to be honest, bro, Robert Whittaker, man, he came out of nowhere. Like I said, bro, he came from scratch to be like the best fighter. Okay, so this bloke had to fight tooth and nail to become one of the best, not just like with the Ultimate Fighter, even in the welterweight and the middleweight division too. But he had a lot of injuries in his career as well, and he had to push back a bit to fix himself up. But then he had to become stronger every single week, every single fight as he can be. And when he became a champion, like, he didn't defend it enough. Like, I wish I could see more of him to defend more.
You're right. He didn't defend it enough.
Yeah.
So you're basically making my point clearer. So Volkanovski actually defended it maybe 6 or 7 times, roughly. And Whittaker defended it once against Romero when he was actually IC, an interim champ. And then they was just giving it to him for fun because haram. And then he defended it against Izzy and got smacked. rather Volkanovski.
Yeah, in front of the Aussie crowd
defended
in Melbourne.
his title, and then and then he fought for the lightweight title. So you're actually making my point a lot easier. Continue.
Baby, I'm not saying the easiest thing, okay? Because Alexander Volkanovski, he took it the easiest way. Rob Whittaker took the hardest way to fight. Like, he was meant to be the hardest fighter, bro.
Whittaker's title, or his fights to the title, were harder than Volkanovski's. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was.
Tell me how.
Right, because he was versing number one contenders, okay? And they had to get their opportunity to fight for the title, but Alexander had to take it the easy way to get the shortcut to retain the title. That's the thing.
All right, Joey. Now, Alex Volkanovski, what impact has he had on the UFC in Australia?
Well, I just want to comment a bit about what Anthony said about Volkanovski taking the easy route. You don't become the second pound-for-pound fighter in the world by taking the easy way. As I mentioned before, his first 5 fights in featherweight, 2 of them were against not only former title contender, but also former first champion of the featherweight division who held the title for 7 odd years. So I don't know where you got this idea of him taking the easy way to the title. And then he beat, not once, but twice, the current BMF champion, Holloway, who hasn't skipped a beat in his career since he lost to Volk. He just kept winning and winning and winning and winning. I think he might have had 1 loss, but he kept winning and winning, and now he's fighting for the title in the next coming weeks. I think it's this
I don't know
week.
if it's official or not. I don't think so.
No, I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure
know
he's
if they announced it, but we don't know who it is.
Who Holloway's fighting for. He's fighting
against Ilya Tsipura.
That's right. Yeah. No, Volkanovski, he's coming up. So as soon as that fight happens, Volkanovski's the next runner-up. But my point is, he beat Holloway twice, who's the current BMF champion. He actually beat him 3 times, sorry. He beat him twice. Then he beat Ortega, who's a beast. Then he beat Korean Zombie, who's a beast. Then he beat Holloway a 3rd time. And then he also beat Rodriguez. And in between the Rodriguez fight, before and after, he also fought twice for the lightweight title against the current pound-for-pound champion, Islam, who's basically a replica of Khabib.
Yeah.
So, in terms of impact, when people say Aussie fighter, Aussie champion, they think about all the achievements of Volkanovski and not so much Whittaker.
Okay, now that all 3 rounds are done and dusted, Anthony and Joey have 60 seconds to prove why the other person is wrong. Joey, I'm going to start with you. Your 60 seconds start now.
I think when you compare Whittaker's 2-fight defense, title defense, against Volkanovski's 7 title defense. Also, I don't know where Whittaker ended up in the rankings. He might have been in the top 5, but he never got to number 2. And when you're number 2 to John Jones, I think you're technically number 1 because no one's going to be topping John Jones. And then when you also look at the resume of people that Volkanovski fought compared to Whittaker, Whittaker's, they're either not in the UFC anymore, or they're retired, or they're just not fighting. When you've got Volkanovski, they're currently competing for the current title. They're BMF champions. They're in the top 5. So I think it's undeniable that Volkanovski is the current face of UFC Australia and is the better UFC fighter.
Okay, Anthony, now you're going to have 6 seconds to prove why Joey is wrong. Go.
I think you're wrong, Joey, because Alexander is number 2, but I think Robert Whittaker is number 1 because he's been in the game for 12 years, okay? And he's going to become a 2-time welterweight or middleweight champion, sorry. And he has more experience than Alexander Volkanovski. So to me, I reckon Whittaker is going to be the best. Well, he's the first UFC welterweight champion of all time. So I think he's way better than Alexander Volkanovski, to be honest.
All right, boys, thank you so much for your points. That's a wrap up to episode 3 of You're Wrong. Now, it's totally up to you guys to decide who won this battle, which one was wrong, Anthony or Joey. Leave it in the comments down below. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and yeah, we're out.
Man, did you hear about those Have a Chat boys, man? I don't even know his name. I think Joseph didn't show up, man.
Yeah, he didn't even come.
He's scared, man.
It's embarrassing.
Hey, boys, you're going to talk about him without him even being here. Let him speak for himself. Joe.
Put him on.
You want to talk crap? How about this? Fine, you're on. Next episode, our channel, greatest NRL coaches. Let's do it.
Bring it on, Joseph. Bring it on.